Did anybody come here going, who is this Jason somebody? No? Good. We can skip the majority of it. But as you know, he is the youngest of the boys, of the brothers born to Dolores and Ellis Marsalis. Now, being in that much of a musical family, it was not if he would, it was what he would play. And at the age of 3, Daddy was a smart man. We need a drummer. So he bought Jason his first toy drum set. And they'd set him up in the living room, and they would introduce him. They would say, ladies and gentlemen, the fabulous Jason. And he would bang, 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 bang. And then he'd go say, Daddy, introduce me again. Daddy, introduce me again. Do it again, Dad. When he was 6, he got a real one. And through other instruments as well, he stuck with those. But drums have always been his primary, his love, his passion. He, of course, went to NOCA, and I have to say that I have seen him play with, I give up on how many different bands that I have seen him with. It's easier to say who I haven't seen him with, and we're not going to do that either. So all I can say is that what an amazing group of musicians he has brought with him. You will surely be entertained. Ladies and gentlemen, the fabulous Jason.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. How are y'all doing tonight? I just want to say that it is an honor for us to be here tonight. And this is indeed a special occasion because the name of the program is indeed The Rare Works of Ellis Marsalis. And there's a reason for that title. And the reason is this. I'll give the short version, but it was in the past couple of years that I started to play more of my father's original music. And some of it was a lot of music that he hadn't been playing. You know, there's things that he had recorded that he hadn't been playing. And there was this one night where Offbeat magazine was giving him a Lifetime Achievement Awards, and they wanted me to do something for him. And I said, we'll do a set of his original music. And Dad was there, and he got a shock a lot of it because hearing a lot of his original music played. And then he started playing more of his original music after that concert, which I found interesting. But it was a time shortly before he had passed when I was telling him, you know, man, there's a lot of this sheet music, man, that's here in this metal drawer that was upstairs in his house. Like, we really need to go through this drawer, man, and organize it and get all these tunes together. You know, and sadly, we didn't get a chance to do that together. But I was able to go back and get the sheet music and organize it. And so tonight, you will be hearing music that is either unrecorded, unreleased, but has not been performed in decades. So that's what we're doing tonight. Yes. Yes, it's what we called new old music. And so we're gonna start this set off with a tune that was actually written in the late 1950s. And amazingly, there was a guitar part for this tune that survived. I was going through his music, and I'm saying, how did this survive after all these years? And what the song that we're going to do for you now was the theme song for a radio show when he was in the Marine Corps. The name of the show was the Leatherneck Songbook, and the instrumentation was, piano, guitar, and bass. And it was this tune that he wrote for this show. And so I thought that it would be great to start off with that piece. We've arranged it for quintet. And in fact, joining me to perform this music for you will be Ashlyn Parker on the trumpet. Derek Doge on tenor and soprano saxophones. Oscar Rossignoli on the piano. And Jason Stewart on the bass. One aspect that is of my father's music that's been interesting to observe is how his music changed over time. His music evolved, and he was one that always checked out whatever was going on. Because a lot of times you get musicians that know a certain time period or they know a certain number of years, but that wasn't my father. No, he just kept going and kept checking out things. And if there was younger players, he'd be checking them out. And that's actually reflected in the music that you're going to hear tonight. There's like changes in the style as time went on. And so we're going to start the set with this tune that was a theme to the U.S. Marine Corps radio show, Leatherneck Songbook, and he called this one Swing It. Yeah, 1950s. But now we're going to fast forward to the 1970s. And this was a tune that was originally recorded on an album entitled Solo Piano Reflections. And we've only started playing it within the past few years. Honestly, it's one of those tunes that hadn't been played for a while. And I decided to do a quintet arrangement of it, and it's been really fun to play. And you'll notice there's a very big difference in the style in this tune compared to the one that we just heard. This is entitled Oneness. Thank you very much. This next piece we're going to break down to a quartet. And this was a tune that my father composed in the 1980s. And he had a quartet at that time that consisted of a drummer named Noel Kendrick, a bassist named Reginald Veal, and a saxophonist named Victor Goins. And I heard this tune when I was really young, but I forgot all about it until years later, maybe 10, 15 years ago, and it just came to me, and I was like, man, wait, I seem to remember this tune, and I even asked Victor Goins, hey, man, I saw him somewhere, man, do you remember this tune that Dad wrote? And he's like, oh, yeah, I remember that one. So I went to Hickory Street and looked in that middle drawer, found the tune, checked it out, and it only had 2 sections, and I said, I think this is worth completing. So I took the material and that was there and wrote a third section to finish the tune. And now, the timing of this is interesting because this is at a point where my two eldest brothers are starting to make records. And of course, our father was checking those records out. And yeah, that is starting to influence the music he's playing. And so this tune is actually reminiscent of that era, especially like the tunes that my second brother, Wynton, second eldest brother, Wynton wrote for albums like Black Codes from the Underground and J Mood and you know, so this tune is kind of in that vein. It's kind of funny because there's some 70s music that my father wrote that influenced Wynton, so now he's returning the favor. So, and the title of this was a sarcastic expression about band members that were late. This is entitled On Time. Thank you very much. Right now, we're going to move forward to the 1990s. And we're going to present for you a suite of music that was recorded and was released. It's a bit hard to find, but it was something that was released. And it was actually the soundtrack to a television show. It was in the 1990s that, early 1990s, Rabbit Ears Productions produced a show for HBO entitled We All Have Tales. And the premise of the show is that they would get these actors to read a fairy tale and musicians to write the music. And it was a very interesting list of people. And so for this one, my father was assigned to write the music for the story of King Midas and the Golden Touch. And the narrator was the British actor Michael Caine. However, my father was writing for a special guest that joined him, a great cellist by the name of Yo-Yo Ma. And on one side note, I had the pleasure of meeting Yo-Yo Ma just a couple of years ago. It was after a concert, I went backstage and I just said, man, it's great to meet you. And he's like, yes. And then he says, I did that session with your father. I'm like, oh, yes. That is correct. So the pieces that we're going to do for you is, the first one is entitled King Midas. Then we will go into Zoe's theme. Then we will play White Butterfly. Then we'll do Chariot's Ascent. And that's followed by The Golden Touch, which is a very dark, sinister piece because the Golden Touch actually has a curse. And then we follow that with Fool's Gold. And then we do Golden Embrace. And then we close out this set of music with Joyous Reunion. Now, before we do that, you may have noticed that the screen is up there. The reason is that we actually do have a clip from King Midas and the Golden Touch. It's a short clip. We're not going to have you sit through the entire thing. You can watch that on your own time. But the reason that I want to share this clip is that this is a clip in which, in the scene, King Midas realizes that he has the Golden Touch. But musically, my father is improvising piano music himself for this particular scene. And the name of the piece is A Remarkable Metamorphosis. So we hope that you'll enjoy.
As you doubtless understand, King's joy, this realization can hardly be described. And the small price of a few hours of lost sleep was simply unworthy of comparing with the exquisite joy he now felt. Oh, he was elated. It next occurred to him that the odd messenger's promise must have come true, and anything he touched might now turn to gold. Without a moment's hesitation, he was out of the bed and furiously looking about the room for a suitable object on which to experiment. He grew quite dizzy at the prospect of it all. At last, his eyes came to rest on an ornately carved chair. He immediately moved toward it, and then, ever so cautiously, he touched it. Instantly, it was transformed into a chair of the purest gold. On examining it more closely, King Midas saw that every part of it had been transformed. The upholstery, the carved wood, even the braided tassels that hung from it were gold. He could hardly believe his eyes. But the remarkable metamorphosis only seemed to whet his appetite for more. He saw a table just outside his bedchamber, and he touched it. He touched a tapestry. Then, as fast as his legs could carry him, he ran into the garden touched a marble statue, a vase, and everything he touched, every single thing, turned to gold. It was more than he could bear. Then King Midas stooped to pick up a white pebble, and no sooner had he touched it than it was gold. He saw another stone, slightly larger, and touched that, and it too became gold. The king next spotted a large conch shell that his daughter had discovered on the seashore. He remembered the day she had found it, and recalled holding the shell to her ear so that she could hear the sounds of the ocean inside it, and how she heard it saying, "Thalassa, Thalassa, Thalassa," like the waves of the sea. In a flash he touched it, and it too was transformed to gold before his very eyes. It was magnificent. He lifted the golden conch to examine it and hold it to his ear, unable to imagine what golden music should come out of it now. But he found that it was extremely heavy, and when he held it up to his ear, he heard absolutely nothing.
King Midas and the Golden Touch Suite. Now, we're going to move on. And, sorry, it's just dawning on me. This is a lot of music. Good God. Man. Anyway, sorry about that. Now we're going to go back to the 1970s. And this was the music which either had a lot of this, these tunes actually have not been recorded. One was recorded but not released. And so this first one has a very interesting story. I went to Duke University to do, I was doing a workshop for, I was there for a couple of days, and I get to the office and I meet this gentleman, and he proceeds to tell me that he was a student at the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts in the 1970s. And I'm like, am I at Duke? What is going on? And then he tells me, the secretary and the other, she was a student too. I'm like, this is getting weirder by the minute. And then he was telling me about when he was in the group, the combo that the father was teaching, and that they would play these competitions. They wouldn't enter in them, but they would play. My father was playing, and he then tells me, like, your father wrote these tunes, and they had different qualities. It was never the same. In fact, there was a tune, that he wrote for us that was really hard to play. And when he told me the name of the tune, I was like, I think I have sheet music to that. And I actually had been taking pictures of it, and I showed him this picture, and he said, wow, that's it. That's the one. And so I think the title of this one was done to, I think, sort of poke fun at his students, because this is like really hard to play. And apparently he would turn to them and say, so did y'all have some fun after playing this real hard music? And so this is a thing that we hope you will enjoy. This is entitled Fun Time. Thank you. This next tune is some, of course, more sheet music that I'd found, and was never really sure what this one was, but all I could do was come to some conclusions. I do know that the beginning is loosely based off of the harmony to the Herbie Hancock composition, Tell Me a Bedtime Story. And I think, judging from the title, that may have been what influenced this. This is entitled Sundown. Thank you. Now we're going to change the mood a bit, and this is another tune that he wrote while he was teaching at New Orleans Center for Creative Arts. And by the way, I asked that same musician who had played that last tune, Fun Time, if he remembered this one, and he did. And this title, it speaks for itself, actually. This is entitled Time and Space. Thank you very much. Now we're going to get into the groove. It's a tune that he wrote back in the early 1970s called Dippy. And it's one that we've been playing a lot in recent years. Well, I consider this one Dippy's sequel. Maybe Dippy's little brother, who knows? But this one is simply entitled Grabit. Not to be confused with those late 80s commercials. Thank you. This next one has a, I guess, similar feel, but very different mood. And this is one of those tunes that I had to sort of, do detective work and put pieces of a puzzle together. You know, there's a melody with no harmony, but then there's harmony over here, but not with the, anyway. But it was sort of fun to put together. And on the sheet music, he called it breaking, but when I listened at the first phrase, it reminded me of the old themes to evening news shows. You know, has anybody noticed they don't really have those anymore? But, you know, I remember, you know, we're in New Orleans. I remember as a kid, you know, the eyewitness news, the 5 o'clock music was just so dramatic and had all these drums. And then you'd have this narrator with this serious voice reading off the people that were going to be doing the news. And it was this whole big thing for like 20 seconds. And then the news would start. And now it's just, it kind of just starts now. But anyhow, so... yeah, that's another problem. So we call this one breaking news. Thank you. Now we're going to slow things down and do some blues. And this is actually a tune named after one of my elder brothers. You know, for those who've wondered in order, There's Branford, Wynton, Ellis III, Delfeayo, Emboya, and me. And so this is actually named after the fifth oldest, and that's Emboya. And Emboya is interesting. He's someone who's, he is nonverbal, but he's really smart and he's really aware. And so you will underestimate him at your peril. There's a funny story that I've heard from back in the day that involved him and Wynton, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Anyway, this is entitled Emboya's Route. Thank you. Now we're going to do a tune a little bit more in a pop groove kind of vein. This is a beautiful one entitled After the Rains. Thank you. Now we're going to go and do a tune that was composed for the Elm Music Company. The Elm Music Company was a group that my father led in the early 1970s, and they used to play at a club known as Lou and Charlie's. Yes, back in the day. Yeah, and so, in fact, the original location is not too far from here, actually. Yeah, Empire, yeah, it's not that far. But this was a tune that was recorded, but the recording was never released. And this is a sort of a three-part piece, if you will. This is entitled Spring, Summer, Autumn. Thank you. This next tune that we're going to do for you was a tune that was first premiered for the radio show American Roots, hosted by Nick Spitzer. This was actually during the pandemic, and it was actually a few months after my father had passed. And so we decided to do a set of his original tunes. And there were some other tunes that hadn't been played in years that we brought out for that one. But I remember going through that sheet music, and I saw this one and said, yeah, I think we should play this one. And it worked out really well. And so we're going to play for you now a thing entitled 3 in 1. Doge on the tenor and soprano saxophones. Oscar Rossignoli on the piano. Jason Stewart on the bass. Well, that's going to do it for this set this evening. We'd like to thank y'all very much for coming out. And I just want to say that it has indeed been an honor to present this music for you. In fact, I was looking out in the hall, and there was actually a painting of my father out there. And I just saw it, and I was just thinking to myself, hope we can do you proud, old man. Really hope we do. So we hope that you've enjoyed our presentation of the rare works of Ellis Marsalis. My name is Jason Marsalis at the drums. Take care. Have a good night.